Go. Welcome to Concrete Jungle Fitness. Tap in, tap out. Joel Williams, Lee Turner. We here.
Back at it again.
It's on.
It's on my Donkey Kong, baby.
Woo, whoop, whoop.
Woo, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, things are good. I get really, really dangerous here. We went in from the square circle into the octagon. And things are going to go wrong in the octagon. That's right. Lee Turner is going to be asked the tough questions by me, Joel Williams. Is he ready? Let's go. Lee Turner. We had a previous phone call.
I can't hear you. It just went dead.
Time travel. If black people were to time travel, man, if we were to go back in time, you said that you were going to go see the great Kung Fu master of Africa. Who was it and what was his name and why?
Okay. So you're referring to the conversation that we had earlier about time travel?
We're going to go straight to the conversation we had, man.
Time travel and black people. And you want to know what master I would go speak to?
Yes.
To fix the whole problem with the world?
Yes, to fix the whole problem, man. Yeah, yes, man.
Well, what I was saying was there's some options, the black leaders, as in Shaka Zulu from way back. He had some bad practices though, so I don't know how what would actually happen, how that conversation would go. But it would have to be a war strategist, someone that could, help with the impending war that happened, that took black people out of Africa against their will. Regular people like you and me, taken out of their country, taken away, stolen away. A lot of black people. And
now, would you use his fighting style as a defense or use it as more confidence to go into battle? Because because look at this seriously, because the war that's going on between Russia and Ukraine, it seems to me that they are defenseless. Now, if you use that, you as the leader, let's say if Russia went into Africa.
Whoa, wait. So we're speaking on, let me get this straight. We're speaking on how would I, as the leader of Africa, go back in time and defend Africa against colonization?
Colonization, yes. Yes, that's right. So I'm using that as a reference of what's happening now.
Okay.
So basically it's going hand in hand almost, like for example, you can use your skills, they use the skills of of Shaka Zulu, what he used back in the day, to help Ukraine against Russia. You see what I'm doing? I'm using, everything is connected in this world. Everything is connected. Now,
we're not going for Ukraine or going for Russia. We're not talking about picking sides in that war, right?
That's right. That's what we're doing. We're using the connection here. We're connecting the dots here.
Okay, so we're talking about one oppressive system trying to overtake another system.
That's right. That's exactly what's happening.
Yes.
You see how Russia went into Ukraine and oppressed them, try to take that over?
Yeah.
Because Ukraine wants to be away from Russia because, number one, because of whether the communism and all that stuff. Now, if they had the fighting styles of Shaka Zulu, the life skills of Shaka Zulu, the martial arts background, they can easily defend themselves. But Russia is a very, very powerful entity. Putin will not give up. Putin is going to strike, seek, kill, and destroy. Now, if you were the leader of Ukraine, would you train your men to fight back or use peace?
The rule of martial arts is that anytime you enter into conflict or into combat, already lost.
So can you explain that?
yeah, the only way of winning, the ultimate win is to not enter into conflict. That means you can talk your way out. That's better than to actually resort to physical violence. Or if you can avoid the problem before it happens, that's an even higher level, right? So the war doesn't start when the war starts. The war starts in the setup. What happens before that? So if you can think in advance, you can proact, you can fix the problem before it starts. And that's the greatest level of self-defense.
Okay. Well, why would you say talk it out first then other than defend itself? Why would you say that?
Because
why use your words other than using that alternative violence?
Well, yeah, violence is final. You can't take it back. You can't go back on it. It's just we're talking about lives lost, millions of lives lost worldwide. It could go. There's no limit to how big that can go. So as adult, mature human beings, we have to let go of our egos and be able to sit at the table and discuss. But how do you discuss with someone who's got bigger weapons than you?
That's true. You can't really discuss with a person who has bigger weapons than you, but can you use your words as a tool to break down their mindset though? Can you do that?
That should be possible. Yes. And as well as they're doing the same thing. So it's a chess match.
So basically the same thought process. Like for example, if you were going to go there to talk to Putin, you'll have to try to use your psychological warfare other than your physical warfare to break down and try to wage peace. But if he didn't want to, then you'll have to use the alternative and use the violence approach, because number one, you want to try to use a defense mechanism not to cause any more lives that have been lost already. You want to try to avoid that.
Yeah, that international politics and international warfare gets really complicated.
True.
I think the biggest thing is allies. No one's an island. So you need allies, and you need, same thing we talked about, you need access to resources. So you always have to beat an enemy to beat an enemy. You can show them that they can't win, and they'll quit. Right? Psychology. If same things that work in one-on-one, they also work in a grand scale, like on a bigger scale. That's the art of war. So psychology. If you can't beat you don't have to beat someone to defeat them. Just show them that they can't win. They discourage them. Like show them that the outcome's not going to be what they thought it was going to be, and they'll give up, because everybody gives up when they realize that it's not going to be how they thought it was going to be. If someone keeps moving the goalpost back on you, eventually you're gonna give up.
Okay.
If you can show it to somebody else, then they'll do the same. If you can show it to an army, the army will do the same thing too. And if you can show it to the leader of that army, which is ultimately the president or whoever, they'll do the same. It's just human nature.
Okay. Now you mentioned before in our other conversations, I'm gonna be switching gears here. We were discussing the UFC.
Yes.
UFC. Now, UFC is the most branded, compacted sports ever. It beats martial arts. It beats wrestling. It beats boxing. It takes everything into one. So, but here's the thing.
You mean as a fighting style? You mean
that's right. As a fighting organization. It's a combat organization.
So we're talking about war, basically, but no, we segued from war to war, meaning groups of people fighting, to one-to-one fighting within an organization. And
That's right.
Are you saying the UFC is the?
Yeah. I was about to switch gears, because
a hard turn. It's a hard turn.
I'm sorry.
Is that a hard turn that you just did?
Was it hard for you? I don't know.
Well, they call that, it's a technical term in the industry. I thought it's called a hard turn when you just change from one subject right to the next subject.
Switching gears. Turning it to the left there. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So, like I said, I did want to keep the show on that one topic. We have multiple discussions to cover, So basically, we're going to go over to the physical combat world now. Your line of work, your physical expertise. You come from a very powerful combat background, martial arts, martial arts, mixed martial arts, boxing, wrestling, all the other good stuff, all that wonderful
Taekwondo,
everything.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Jiu-Jitsu. You're a man of trillion hats on your head.
Jiu-Jitsu.
You're a man of a trinity of hats on your head. You're not just one person. You're a man of many different hats on your head. I don't know how you keep it on, but it fits. All of those hats fit.
All I need is my locks. That's my crown.
Now, I was just thinking that the conversation also that we led into was UFC. If you look at the UFC, it's not very ethnic based, cultural based, as it were. They use the top guys are predominantly of the Caucasian persuasion. How do you feel about that? I'm just gonna come out and say it. We're gonna just keep it real. As a black man, how do you feel as a black man that the champion is predominantly white?
Wow.
We're going there, ladies and gentlemen.
We're going heavy. No,
right.
I'm black. Listen. What you telling me? Listen, the UFC has 3 black champions right now. Mm-hmm. They call themselves the 3 kings from Africa because they're all of African descent. And up until now, before this, though, they didn't have very many black champions. There's always 1 or 2, but like what you're saying, predominantly non-black. Mm-hmm. For mixed martial arts, in the beginning, it was like easy for a white guy to get up, to get famous and popular. But now with social media changing, Conor McGregor type people aren't the only ones that can get that money. Mm-hmm. We're seeing it start to switch. But when you look at the fan base is mostly white. Mm-hmm. And when you go to the martial arts gyms, it's mostly white people learning martial arts. Mm-hmm. I don't know where the black people are learning martial arts from, but you don't really see them in the martial arts in the gyms that much. Mm-hmm. And in the crowds that watch the fights, it's
predominantly Caucasian, predominantly white. Come to think of it, why is it that though? Because number one, if you see it, they say that we're the ones that are most violent though. They say that in the streets we're the ones that are most violent, but you're putting it predominantly white because aren't they scared of us because we're more physically stronger than the Caucasian persuasion? Or they're separating the two because they see a big, tall black guy and put him in basketball that he can be more dominant in the world of UFC. Why do you think that is?
So they're looking at us as they're prejudging us and thinking that we're all putting us in the same basket and thinking that we have these certain roles to play and certain other roles that we shouldn't be part of. Mm-hmm. But now in these spaces, we don't belong in these spaces. We don't feel like we belong in these spaces. But even now, we're starting to cross over, but not fully like it should be. They just started a UFC show on like a mixed martial arts show on Netflix where they're in Africa training to be in the UFC. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We'll see how that does. That's never happened before.
That's actually historic. Why? Because number one, it breaks boundaries. It cracks the glass ceiling, as you were.
Yeah.
It takes a look at different avenues, because remember back in the day, what if Shaq decided to go into the UFC at his young age? Retired from basketball, went into the UFC.
But there was
cracking the glass ceiling, right?
There was no money back there. Yeah, but I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Now that the money's there, good athletes like Shaq, nature almost, that can big and tall and athletic and can do everything. Over. And it's just getting to that point now. So this is it was mostly white dominated and it did raise people up like Conor McGregor and everything else. But now the door is open. Not quite. They're fighting with the UFC champion, the heavyweight champion in Ngannou right now. He wants to get out of his contract, and he wants more money, and they're not getting the money he wants. So he's gonna do whatever he's gonna do.
And the fans play a big role in that too. The fans play a big role of sports entertainment, right?
Yes.
What if they see a black champion in the UFC? You know, like what if you don't know the politics behind it?
Right,
You
how
know?
hard it was for them to get there. If you see a black champion in the UFC, they went through hell to get there. Not saying that the white guys don't go through hell to get there, but they went through hell and they're black. So
what's the hard work that between a black man and a white man trying to get into a UFC? Like, you know, do you see the struggle, or there's not a bit of a struggle in that?
No, I don't know exactly how much of a struggle it is differently, but I do know that, you know, as far as environment goes, you know, maybe if you're black and you want to train with black people, right? Then where are they? So where do you go? There's a few that you can go to. There's one trainer, Dewey Cooper. I follow him on Instagram, and he's real cool. And he's black. He's got dreads, and he's trained lots of champions. He's been a champion himself, and he trains in Ngannou, the champion right now. So and he trains lots of the black MMA fighters. I see him. So, but there's not very many other people like that. I think that's a void. The fighting style, everybody fights, and you'll see everybody fights the same way. They all copy each other, kind of. Like, you know, kickboxing. They do boxing, Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu, preferably Gracie jiu-jitsu. So they want to have, you know, but everybody kind of does the same style of fighting. It's stylized fighting. So everybody knows the same things. Everybody has defenses for the same attacks because the attacks are similar.
Could you explain that? Can you go a little bit deeper into that?
Well, if you know, boxing, you know, as long as everyone's got two hands, then everyone's gonna box very similarly, right? Some people that are really good at boxing, like Floyd Mayweather, it's gonna be sharp boxing, but it's two hands, so you can see like there's nothing new under the sun that you're gonna see from boxing. Thai boxing, same way. We've seen it all. Thai boxing has nothing new that we've never seen before. If you put boxing with Thai boxing, both that combined style, we've seen every single thing it has to offer. Nothing new, you know? And you put that with jiu-jitsu, now we've seen every move, best jiu-jitsu as well. So these three things, you have these three different styles together, and that guy wins. You've seen everything that he's done. Like whoever is the best at that is the best. But if you throw somebody in there that knows everything that guy knows, but they have an African style as well, like Capoeira, Angola, the Africans, the original style, and put them in the mix, they'll dominate everybody because nobody will have a defense for what they're throwing at them.
So you're saying that you went ways back there, connecting everything, Thai boxing, Capoeira, Muay Thai boxing is all a connection. Basically, it's all an evolution of itself. For example, boxing, Thai boxing.
It's like how Kung Fu evolved. All Kung Fu, they had all different styles, so many different styles of Kung Fu. And everybody was just saying, everybody was, you know, pretty much on a level. And then somebody said, you know what, I'm going to invent drunken Kung Fu. And that messed everybody up. Drunken style could beat up every style because it was, you know, similar but different. A variation on a theme, you know. There's no variations on the theme that are coming into mixed martial arts because everyone's doing the same thing all the time. But if they were to throw a variant into the mix, it would flip the whole script on everybody. And then where is this Capoeira Angola practitioner going to learn all these styles? And when they learn it, how can they learn it in a way that's consistent with how they've learned Capoeira Angola?
What does Capoeira Angola bring to the table?
I mean, where's the music? First of all, how come no one's training to the beat?
Yeah.
What happened to that? That's ancestral. You know.
Yeah, but you can't use that
right now as a black man, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where's the music?
Exactly.
Please don't stop the music.
But here's the thing: like it wouldn't make the promoters any money though.
Right.
Using that kind of style, right? So you're in a 30-minute match, you're in a 30-minute contest,
Yeah.
and you're doing capoeira, and you're flipping, you're gyrating around in the ring. It's going to confuse the fans. It's going to entertain the fans, but
Well, it would be
that's going to
entertaining.
draw them in.
I think they would love it. You tell me they wouldn't love that? That's the best. It'd be spectacular knockouts.
This is true.
Yeah.
No, I agree, but like for example, as the sports promoters would say, okay, will this draw me money? Would this make T-shirt sales go through the roof?
Right, right. When you're just sitting at a desk looking at numbers, that doesn't compute into the whole thing. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
yeah. I get that. Yeah, but on
Yeah.
our end, our end, the fighter end, all we're trying to do is create the perfect fighter. And these guys, they think that's make it seem like they've discovered what the perfect fighter is.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's not the perfect fighter, but it's a blueprint to become the perfect fighter. But they have to add more things into their mix, into their soup.
But their idea of a perfect fighter is one style, one motion, one move, that's it. But if you take the African style or the normal everyday man, you want to learn everything. That's the perfect fighter, would you say? You learn all sorts of styles. That's the perfect warrior. What's the difference between the perfect fighter and the perfect warrior?
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
The warrior had perfect fighter has been in a fight, but the perfect warrior has been in a war. So that's like Shaka Zulu versus Bruce Lee.
Oof. Dude. So you're saying Bruce Lee's the perfect fighter, but Shaka Zulu is the perfect warrior?
Yeah, if they went head to head, even if it was a demonstration, Shaka Zulu would end him. He would end Bruce Lee.
Wow, that's going a little bit of controversial there, because the world over, because if you look at it, you know the history of Bruce Lee and Shaka Zulu, right? You know that Bruce Lee invented karate.
No,
they paint this man like a no. Hold on a second. They paint this man.
Oh, you better stop right there.
They paint. No. Hold on a second. Let's get down to this.
We gotta start fact checking right now. If you're gonna make this statement, we're gonna have to turn on some fact checkers, my friend.
I'm not making that statement, but I'm not making that statement. What I'm saying, he's one of the greats. He basically revolutionized karate. You know, he brought it to America.
He was good, but he was a student. You know, he was a student that didn't finish his training. Even he could have went a lot further. He was trained with Ip Man, right? Who was like who Bruce Lee could have been, but Ip Man was the man for real.
Hold on a second. Wait a minute. That's a bold statement. So you're saying right here, right now, live on Tap In and Tap Out, Bruce Lee needed training?
Yeah, he wasn't finished his training. He went on to adapt the training that he learned and everything else. But he came from a system that bona fide martial arts system that his teacher was like one of the top guys, one of the 7 immortals or something like that.
Isn't that a little bit controversial what you just said?
Well,
that's
a student, you know, same as me. Like, you know, he's a student. He had a teacher. You know, he broke off from his teacher, same as me. And then he went and started his own school, started doing his own thing, same as me. Became an actor. You know, I done some acting.
But Lee is the greatest of, I don't know, but they say Bruce Lee is the greatest of all time. He invented karate.
Where's his world championship belt? Did he have a belt? What did he get?
He didn't need a belt back then.
Everybody, like, he was very disciplined and very talented and really good. And when he was tested, you know, he stepped up to the test that came to him. You know, and in the movies, he was just lightning fast and very precise. He could hold his body, and he's a good black belt.
But he's the greatest black belt of all time.
He beat up Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris was supposed to be the greatest. So
He-
if he beat up Chuck Norris, that makes him better than Chuck Norris. But they never really fought. But he looked really good. Even if it's acting, he looked a lot better than Chuck Norris did in the movie.
Now, I'm coming to think about it now. So, how do you think that Bruce Lee? Well, I know like he grew up in like China and got his evolution in karate, mixed martial arts for years. They call Bruce Lee the founding father of mixed martial arts. That's where the stepping stone is. Bruce Lee was the GOAT. But now you're saying that he wasn't the GOAT.
Well, he's the GOAT as far as his era. He created an era. There was no era before his era. It's like the era started with Bruce Lee. So he went through all his hardships and he gets to be the icon that he is. But he started it all because he crossed over. He's the first crossover. Like, I don't care what Master has to say. I'm gonna do my own thing. You know, I don't think it was his choice in the beginning. He had to leave. He had to leave for some, like, people were after him or something. He had to leave China and come to the States. But when he was there, he went on his own path. But eventually, after the hardships he went through, he went on his own path, and they still told him not to do it. They said, "You're not allowed to do that." Didn't they come to beat him up? Didn't he get hurt that way?
Yes, he did.
Right, and he still went for it. And when he got hurt, part of the rehab, I think that's when he learned about weight training and physical strength training. And he ended up being one of the things about him was he was like a Tiger Woods, and he was the first martial artist to start weight training.
Yeah.
Weight training. He's very, very strong, very strong. With the kung fu that he knew and the strength, when he put that together and he did demonstrations and showed people, they couldn't compete with him.
Couldn't touch him.
Yeah, he had an advantage, a real strength advantage over everybody. Yeah.
Man.
You see him kick that bag? The bag. Yeah. He was good. He could lift. I saw his weight training program. He could really impressive. As a personal trainer, very impressive. And he wrote. Yeah, and he understood.
Okay. Now
he had a high understanding. He's a good black belt.
Now, I notice you're wearing the African colors right now, the leopard and kicking it the old school way, man. You're really proud of your African heritage there, man. I like the gear that you're rocking right now, man. I like that stuff.
I wasn't really thinking about it though. It just happens. That's just how it is. You know, I feel comfortable. Makes you feel comfortable.
Okay. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back after these messages on Tap In and Tap Out. More with Lee Turner and Joel Williams. That's right. We'll be back. Round 2.
Ding, 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 ding.
Fight!